Welcome to the DreamViews podcast, episode 4.
Each week we'll be covering any and everything revolving around the world of lucid dreaming.
We're your hosts, Rare Cola.
And Ophelia Blue.
This week we'll be talking about dream-induced lucid dreaming and mnemonic-induced lucid dreaming. We also have our first special guest who specialises in the mild technique, Burke.
Hello.
So do you want to give a brief introduction as to who you are, how long you've been on DreamViews, etc.?
Yep, I have been on DreamViews for about 2.5 years. I joined back in mid-spring of 2010. I've had around 100 lucid dreams, give or take a few, and this year I actually completed the task of the year, which was a plus for me.
Awesome.
Wow.
So we'll be talking to you more later with your experiences and just generally getting your view on mild, seeing as that's what you specialise in. So for now, Lisa, do you want to give an introduction onto what DILD and mild actually are?
Sure. DILD, or dream-induced lucid dreaming, it's probably the easiest and most common induction technique. And this is basically when the dreamer starts out in a normal dream and then something triggers lucidity. Awareness, reality checks, and dream signs, as well as having a positive attitude and belief that you will have a lucid dream, are all key for this technique, which we'll discuss in a moment when we go over the how-tos. A mild, which is known as a mantra or mnemonic-induced lucid dream, is a method which takes the positive thinking one step further. In addition to everything from DILD, you affirm before bed that you will have a lucid dream. Dream incubation, visualizing, and auto-suggestion all play roles here.
Yeah, definitely. So we can get into a bit about what how to DILD and mild. We're going to start with DILD. I'm not sure if you know you do too much DILDing, do you, Burke?
A fair amount. I weave the reality checks and everything that goes along with it into my daily routine.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to pull from the DreamViews Academy class that we spoke about on episode 2, and just to go into more detail about DILD to begin with. So there are several induction techniques that we have linked in the lessons. The first step, of course, is to improve your dream recall. One of the best ways to do this is to start a dream journal. The more you write, the more you remember, and it's important to include even small details that you remember to rewire your brain to class dreams as something it should remember. So awareness is a great way to increase your chances of becoming lucid through DILD and mild methods as well. It can be as simple as asking yourself, am I dreaming right now? And then coming up with solid reasons as to why you are not. To get more in-depth, awareness is sort of questioning and being aware of all of your surroundings, feeling the wind blow against you, the sound of your feet hitting the floor, the brightness of the sun, etc. Does anything you're aware of feel odd or out of place? So that would be sensory awareness. I assume you practice sensory awareness as well, but
Yes, I do.
and I definitely know you do, Lisa.
Absolutely. It's the best way. It's the best way to, like you said, the big question, am I dreaming right now? Is something out of place? And the more you question these things during the day, just as you kind of get into the hustle and bustle of daily life, stop for a moment, look around. Are there weird colors, shapes? Does, someone not look like they normally do? Something not in a place it should normally be? And the more you question these things during your waking life, the more likely you're going to automatically question them in a dream, in a non-lucid dream. And once you question it and get into the practice of questioning it during a dream, you might come up with the answer, no, this shouldn't be this way, and that is how you become lucid within a dream.
Yeah, and I mean even like dream signs. I think we're going to get more into dream signs a bit later. They play a role here into like just being aware of your senses and everything. Is anything out of place? Again, dream signs. Anytime a dream sign pops up, you can really pull forward your sensory awareness and focus on everything.
Absolutely.
So another style of awareness is self-awareness, which is arguably more important. The sensory awareness described before can get you sort of lost in a dream if you focus on it too much. While in a dream you need to be aware at all times that you are dreaming, and the body you're experiencing experiencing is just a manifestation in the dream. Your real body is laying in bed asleep. If I'm going to read a quote from the book Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self, to give you an example of why this is important. So, I seem to be walking through a small town. I enter a simple restaurant and walk through it into a mechanic's garage. I see a door and decide to slip through it, even though it seems to have a string attached to an alarm. As I get out into the street, I look around and realise this is a dream. Lucidly aware now, I start flying up the street, looking at people sitting in candlelit cafes and walking down the street. The detail is incredibly vivid. I sing a funny rhyming song as I look at things. I keep flying further and end up outside of town with a strong inclination to fly to the right. But then, in a moment of conscious choice, I exercise my right to change the direction of the dream and decide no, I'm going into the darkness, and I turn left. As I move forward into the darkness, the visual imagery disappears. For a very long while I feel that I'm moving without any visual imagery. There's only a foggy, dark grey void. I keep moving in this visually empty space and begin to wonder if I'm going to wake up. But suddenly a scene appears, bit by bit, first a bush, then a tree, then another tree. Soon the dream fleshes out nicely, and I stand lucid on a gently sloped hill, like something you would see in Britain, with small leafy trees and lots of green grass. I notice that next to me is a small bush with berries on it. I examine it closely. Suddenly I have an awkward realization that my body in bed is having a hard time breathing, even though I continue to see the lucid dream imagery on the green hills. While my conscious awareness is admiring the grassy spot in a lucid dream, I seem to feel the breathing obstruction. With this bifocal awareness, I gently put some mental energy into making my physical head move up and away from the bedsheets or pillow while concentrating on remaining in the lucid dream. This seems to work, but finally I decide to wake into physical reality and determine what is hampering my breathing. So that's sort of how you can really affect your self-awareness. He also mentions that with experience you'll realise that sometimes you can be consciously dreaming and also aware of your physical body in bed. So to stay in a lucid dream you have to maintain your primary focus there. On occasion you can check in on your physical body's awareness. In this example, when he woke up the bedsheet was really in his mouth.
I find that funny.
Yeah, I assume you practice self-awareness as well, the sort of being aware that you are aware. Burke, I'm talking to.
Yes, I do a lot actually. On various accounts, I can remember, especially when a dream is fading, that I can feel myself laying in the bed, and I really have to think, like, to try and spin or try and salvage the dream. And I have to really think so that my dream body is the one spinning and not my body in bed, because then I would just wake up flailing around in my bed like an idiot.
Yes, I see on DreamViews a lot that sensory awareness has a lot of focus with all-day awareness and the sporadic awareness technique, but I think a lot of people need to put more focus onto the self-awareness portion, like being aware of where you were 5 minutes ago and what you're going to be doing in 5 minutes is another important thing to try and remember. I mean, in learning how to lucid dream, we learn much more than how to manipulate dream objects and symbols. We learn the importance and proper use of conscious awareness. So, do you want to talk a bit about reality checks, Lisa?
Sure. Another way of engaging awareness is by performing something called a reality check, or RC, as you'll see it, the abbreviated version on the website. These are simply performing tasks that can only be accomplished in a dream, like pinching your nose and seeing if you can still breathe through it, or trying to push your finger all the way through your palm, which is really gross. I've done it a couple times. It's really weird. I don't like it anymore. But if you're in a dream and you start to question that there's a possibility that you're dreaming. Maybe you're not used to the lucid feeling yet, and you get your finger and you shove it through, the palm of your other hand, and it will go through quite often, and then that's how you kind of know you're dreaming. It's something you can practice during the day too, but you have to combine it with a sense of awareness. This will fail if I'm awake, and it will succeed if I'm asleep. The main ideas behind these reality checks, though, is to increase your level of awareness, again, of your surroundings, and to increase your chances of performing one in a dream. The more you practice reality checks in the day, and I've said this many times, then the greater the likelihood that you will make it a habit in your dreams as well. And then there again, if your finger goes through your palm, then you know you're dreaming, and you can begin having a lucid dream and controlling everything and having a good time. Finally, if you've kept up with a dream journal, you may begin to notice common themes or recurring events or objects. These are basically your dream signs. The more often you see these signs in waking life and perform a reality check when you do see them, the greater, again, the likelihood that you'll perform the check in a dream when you come across the same sign.
Yeah, so what reality checks do you use, Burke?
Oftentimes, like, my go-to reality check is normally the nose plug one. I find that the most reliable because it's such a unique feeling and obvious when it actually works. But I also like to do the clock check, where you look at a clock, turn away for a few seconds, and then look back at it. And the clock oftentimes will have changed, or will be displaying some weird time like 10:82 or something. And I find that that's actually really easy to do throughout the day, especially if you're on a computer a lot, since you have that clock right down in the corner.
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned, the nose plug one, it's definitely one that's really kind of shocks you into becoming lucid, because particularly when I do the nose plug, I block my nose and then I tend to breathe quite hard to see if I can breathe. And when I do this in a dream, obviously I can breathe, so I take a deep breath, and it really forces you into the lucid dream, realizing you can breathe, and it's sort of coupling in stabilization with your reality check, which is great.
Yeah, definitely.
So, as we mentioned before, another good time to reality check and practice awareness is with dream signs. Dream signs are basically common occurrences in your dreams. I know a lot of common ones, we've got a few we're going to discuss, but I think one I've read a lot about is people who wear contact lenses. In dreams I've read that people take out their contact lenses and they see lots of them, maybe 5 or 6, just spurt out of their eyes. And Lisa, you have one with tornadoes.
Yeah, tornadoes, that's an interesting dream sign. It can kind of fall under the category of dream signs that don't really happen in real life, and so it's hard to do a reality check if you don't see them in real life. And I've never seen a tornado except in my dreams. And that's a difficult dream sign, because since it is something that could happen in real life, for a long time I would have a dream about a tornado and I would think, okay, my first impulse is always, this time I'm really seeing a tornado in real life. This is cool. And my reality check would be really sort of half-hearted after that. I mean, trying to stick my finger through my palm. Now I know this is real. I'm really seeing it, and then you wake up and it's major face palm moment. It's like, oh, why didn't I know that I was dreaming that time? But this past year, I got better and better at really, really focusing on it. And there's actually a technique from a guy named Oreo Boy 1996, I believe, where he said if you have a dream, a non-lucid dream, and it's one of your dream signs, something that you should have become lucid, a good thing to do when you wake up is immediately tell yourself that you should have been lucid when you saw this. I should have been lucid when I saw that tornado. And the more you link the idea of lucidity with this particular object, the greater the chance that you will become lucid next time you see it. And I kind of did that before I ever discussed this with him. I just kind of was like, oh, I should become lucid. How could I? And pretty soon I got to the point where now when I see a tornado, half the time I realize that I'm dreaming, and I'm getting better and better at it. But it's been kind of a tough one for me.
Yeah, my dream signs are a little bit more sporadic recently, especially I've had one with stairs where I seem to be climbing up stairs a lot in my dreams. Like one the other night, I was climbing up a sort of old tower and going up to art with my bow and arrow and to arch some people or something. But yeah, it's definitely something you need to try and focus on because it's very easily missed. Your consciousness isn't sort of there in a dream. Do you know your dream signs, Buck?
Yeah, I have a couple that actually change a lot as I have more dreams, but the one that seems to stay constant is normally school. Anything related to school, like the building itself or doing homework or something like that, it generally seems to appear in my dreams pretty often.
I hear that one a lot from people, either, being, they dream about the school that they're in right now, or a lot of times they dream about being back in elementary school or something again.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that one a lot. I think it's because you spend so much time in school that it's just so much day residue that leaks into your dreams.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I forget a lot of the other common ones. Oh, water. I think a lot of people dream about water. I think Sagius from his Wild class mentioned something about water, how it symbolizes dreams. So many people have these experiences with water and even just the color blue.
Oh, definitely. When I was little, I had a near drowning experience, and so I would dream about water in a very kind of violent way as a result. But there have been several times that I would dream that I was underwater and I would suddenly just take a breath. I don't know what prompted me to do that, but I could always breathe. It's kind of like the nose pinch thing, but I'm underwater. I'm just taking a breath and I can breathe. And then because of that, then it triggered lucidity. But water is a huge dream sign. I agree.
Yeah, I've been underwater a lot in my dreams, and I seem to get into this period where I'm underwater for a long period of time and I think I can't breathe. So I'm kind of struggling to breathe, and I can sort of feel my waking body where it's not actually breathing because I've told myself that I can't breathe. And then in these dreams, I think I've had maybe 2 or 3 of these where I'm underwater and then I suddenly shoot up out of the water, and I think one time I even became lucid, and you sort of just suddenly get into breathing again. It's another example of dreams, how they're so real that it affects your waking body sometimes.
So you shot out of the water to be able to breathe again instead of just breathing underwater, basically.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually took a breath underwater in a dream.
Well, that's understandable. I mean, if you're underwater, you don't really think, oh, I have to breathe, I'll just breathe in a big gulp right now. You generally will want to rush to the surface.
Well, that would be the more logical thing to do. I don't know why. What prompts me to just say, okay, take a breath anyway.
Alright, so shall we move over to mild now? At least I'll give a brief introduction.
Yeah. In addition to all of the routines that help you achieve a DILD, the mild technique requires an extra practice just before going to bed, or it can even be practiced occasionally throughout the day. The simplest explanation of this practice is to spend some time relaxing before bed and repeating a mantra to yourself. Many people have reported a higher frequency of lucid attainment by taking the time to do this step, possibly due to the fact that it does increase the belief that it will work, rather than, just relying on the random hope that you'll have it dialed.
Okay, so as you're the expert with mild, Burke, do you want to go into what you actually do?
Well, basically what I normally do is, as I'm falling asleep normally, I'll generally come up with a mantra. It's normally, personally, I normally like to do it in the present tense, but be sure you're mentioning that it's tonight, like I'm going to have a lucid dream tonight or something similar to that. And I've heard a lot of people like to do it in the present tense, like I am lucid dreaming or I'm aware that I'm dreaming or something like that. And you really have to work around with it a little bit, see what works best with you, but pretty much anything that works that is related to lucid dreaming will be beneficial. And personally what I do is I'll repeat my mantra as I'm falling asleep right when I go to bed, but I'll also wake up and do a wake back to bed in the middle of the night, like 5.5 or 6 hours after I go to bed. And then I just get up for a couple minutes, use the bathroom, and then when I go back to bed, I repeat a mantra again, and it's generally something similar, I will lucid dream.
Yeah, definitely. Mantras play a big role in it. I see a lot of people have luck when they say, "I will lucid dream tonight," as you said, because sort of that confirmation and really droning it into your mind really helps to get you lucid and carry it over into a dream. I mean, that's the basic point of the mild technique. You want to drum stuff into your subconscious to make sure it works when you go into a dream. So, have you had any mild experiences? What do you do, Lisa? I'm not sure if you particularly practice mild.
I don't practice it. I've had a couple situations which I decided I could classify as a really, really weak mild, I guess. And that is whenever I've had like a lucid dry spell for a while, I'll suddenly go, God, I haven't had a lucid dream in a while. Maybe I will tonight. A real just kind of half-arsed thing there, but I would do that like in the day sometime. Something would make me think about lucid dreaming, and I'm like, God, I haven't had one in a long time. And 9 times out of 10, if I make that statement to myself, that thought, I would have a lucid dream. But it only seemed to work if I hadn't had one in a long time. It's really weird, but it was just kind of a really weak, loose. Yeah, I'll probably get there tonight, and then it worked. So whatever positive thing that you can tell yourself that helps you achieve lucidity, I think is kind of a mantra. It's sort of a mild, and definitely if it works, do it.
Yeah, I think it's important to really believe what you're saying as well. If you're saying, like, I will have a lucid dream tonight, and you're not believing it, if you have doubts that you're going to become lucid, or even that you're just hoping that you will become lucid, you don't want to hope, because then you're hoping for something that may not happen. You want to be sure that it will happen with no doubt in your mind. And I seem to see a lot of people mess up on that, where they're saying, okay, I want to have a lucid dream tonight, and they're kind of timid.
Yeah, just be sure that you're really, telling yourself that you're going to have a lucid dream. Like, as long as it's a positive mindset, you could have any mantra that you want, as long as you know in your head what you want to happen.
Yeah,
Definitely, yeah.
I wrote a guide a while back for the nighttime routines, because I see a lot of people as well where they just go to bed and they don't really do anything other than lay down and maybe repeat a few lines of a mantra. But I think you generally need to do more than that. You need to really set up your dream journal, maybe even read over your old dreams, sort of get into the dreaming mindset. That helps a lot, particularly if you set up your dream journal before bed and put down spaces where you can write down the times that you wake up and what have you. Another technique with mild is dream incubation. I know Oreo Boy 1996, we mention him a lot on this podcast, but he's amazing at lucid dreaming. He's another person who uses mild all the time, and he uses dream incubation, or his own technique called daydream awareness, I think it calls it.
Yeah, DDA.
Yeah, and this basically sort of encompasses just laying in bed maybe for 5-10 minutes, the longer the better really, if you can just sort of lay in bed and stay awake and focus on this thing until you're completely you need to sleep. Just imagining a scene and seeing yourself becoming lucid and how it would feel to become lucid, really noticing everything in the dream, again focusing on sensory awareness in your incubation and self-awareness. A lot of people seem to have luck with that if they do it during wake back to bed. I'm not sure if you do any dream incubation, Burke.
Not really anymore. I used to, like, a while back. I remember actually a lot of times after I see a movie I really like. Like, I remember when the movie Avatar first came out, I really enjoyed that and I wanted to dream about that world. So I went to bed that night and for like a week afterwards thinking, just keeping thoughts of that world in my head. And after, I think it was maybe 5 or 6 days, I had actually had a dream about it, which I was able to remember, and it got me pretty excited.
That is cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah, it's another important thing to mention. You need to be really consistent with these techniques. You can't expect to go to bed tonight, for example, and just repeat this mantra, maybe do a bit of dream incubation, and expect to become lucid. Particularly with mild and dialed, they're things you need to practice daily, and you really need to keep your motivation with them and continue it for over weeks, months, even years. And obviously the more you practice it, the better it will become.
Absolutely. I'm a big dreamer. I started doing
You're really, really lagging, Lisa. Yeah, you're stuttering in and out.
Oh, I'm sorry. You guys go ahead.
I think it's alright now. Do you want to go ahead and continue what you're saying?
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying that dream incubation is something that I've always done, even before I knew what it was called. Do I sound better now?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Okay. They were yelling inside the door. That's not a problem. Anyway, something about dream incubation I wanted to add is what makes it, for me, it seems like what makes it seem to work better if it's something that I really, really want to dream about, like Burke, like you were saying about the movie Avatar. Rather than just picking like, a random, pretty, happy place I want to dream about, something specific, a fantasy or a place that you really, really would want to visit, and you're able to almost obsess about it maybe to a point every night, or think about it during the day, or before you go to bed for your nighttime routine, thinking about it, really, really wishing that this was what you could dream about, has had a huge, profound effect on the successful lucid dreams that I've had. Most of the ones that I've had that were sort of wishes that came true were based on incubations that I had during the day or just before bed. It's really important to really, really want it. I guess is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, definitely. That applies to all of lucid dreaming. You really need to want it. To become lucid, you even need to really figure out why you want to become lucid. If your mind has no sort of motivation to become lucid, it's not really going to oblige, and with any technique.
This is true.
Alright, so shall we move on to some experiences now? I think
Definitely.
Lisa, you was going to go first.
Yeah. The DILDs, those are by far the most common form of induced lucid dreams, and they're the most common form for me. I've had tons of them. So I'll start with one of my favorites, and I mentioned it, I guess it was on the last podcast or the one before. The advanced task of the month for August, it just so many elements that you need for a successful DILD were there, which is one of the reasons I really liked it. And for example, I was standing in my garden and a lot of the plants were out of place. Noticing something wrong or out of place in waking life is an excellent time to perform a reality check, and that came true right there in that dream. But I also noticed that there were tomatoes growing in really odd places on plants that really weren't tomato vines at all. And another dream sign for me besides tornadoes are tomatoes, oddly enough. And that's just because I'm constantly struggling with growing them in real life, and I'm really bad at gardening. I love to do it, but I'm not really that good. And tomatoes would be like the one plant that I wish I could get to grow and fruit properly on a regular basis. So again, it's that kind of, it's something I obsess about. It's something that I really and truly want. And oddly enough, they kind of appear in my dreams as dream signs. There'll be this weird random plant that's not a tomato vine that will suddenly be bursting with giant tomatoes or huge clusters of tomatoes. And in this dream, that was what kind of finally tipped me off. I was like, there's this plant, it had like a cluster of tomatoes growing in the center near the trunk of it. It was really strange. But anyway, noticing those two things, the plants being out of place and the weird tomatoes, is what triggered the lucidity, and as a result I was able to complete the task of the month.
Yeah, you mentioned how you sort of become lucid with something out of place. It's always interesting with milds and diodes when you're inside of a dream and you just realize you're dreaming. It's something you don't get with DILDs or wilds because you're just instantly lucid. It's really interesting to experience how you think you're in waking life, but then you realize that you're not. So Burke, do you want to talk about your milds now? Any experiences you've had that are interesting, or even your first mild?
Well, most of my milds, like, once I'm in the dream, it's not really that much different from a dial, just the fact that you used a mantra to get it, and it's much more consistent. But one of them was during some of my task of the years. I was just, using my general mantra, I will lucid dream tonight, and I was actually doing it during a wake back to bed. And I had gone back to bed at, like, I think 4:30, and afterwards, during the dream, it was, which dream was that? It was the, I can't find it anymore. Oh yeah, it was the Titanic task of the year. And after I had actually completed the task of the year and I had woken up, I had actually looked back at my clock and noticed that it had only been like 10 minutes, even though the dream had felt like half an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, time dilation is really interesting. You get that somewhat frequently in lucid dreams.
Mm-hmm.
I think with diodes and milds as well, it's important to try and keep your emotions in check. I don't think we've spoke about this yet, but it's an important thing to note how when you become lucid with diodes and milds, you sort of get this euphoria even where you realize you're dreaming, and a lot of people become so excited that they just wake themselves up.
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely need to try and control that. So an experience I had with mild, which I think is a pretty good example. I hadn't become lucid in a while before this one. I think it was maybe a week or two. And I was doing my wake back to bed when I get a text message from my friend who had been speaking to the previous day about lucid dreaming. And she texts me really early in the morning, and she says, "Oh my god, I've just woken up and I realised I was dreaming inside of this dream. I was staring at a brick wall or something." And then she woke herself up because she got excited that she'd done this lucid dreaming thing that I was speaking to her about. So I'm really happy for her. I text her back and everything. But then I go back to sleep really shortly after that, and I'm non-lucid obviously, and I'm on this street near a house, sort of at an intersection, and I was with my friend, the friend who just had their first lucid dream, and I sort of figured I was in their dream, thinking I was their dream character, because they was looking around in amazement at the dream world and how realistic everything was, and I was super happy for them, and that they had just become lucid, basically guiding them to try out all sorts of things, and I suggest that they fly. But then that's when it sort of clicks. I realised that I'd sort of incubated this, and I couldn't possibly be a dream character in my friend's dream, and that it must be my dream. So I slip into lucidity, and I didn't even do any reality checks here because I was so sure with the dream incubation that had happened before. I knew that I was texting my friend, and I just sort of flew up into the sky at this point, and I seem to have lots of colours in my skies. In this particular dream, there was lots of early morning colours, sort of deep oranges and light blues in the high sky, and it was really interesting.
That's an important point that you make too about awareness. The more often you have lucid dreams, the more you get that lucid feel, and you can snap into lucidity almost immediately. You know you're in a dream at that point, and you don't have to do a reality check. You can kind of just do it anyway, just maybe to confirm it just for sure, or just because some reality checks are kind of interesting. It's to see what would happen once you know you're lucid. But there's definitely a feeling that you can lock onto, that you can use as an anchor once you've had enough lucid dreams. I don't know if this has happened to you at all, Burke. If you suddenly become lucid from a dialed or mild or whatever, are you having to question yourself or do a reality check, or are you so used to it now that you just kind of know?
At this point, it's pretty much just, something is out of the ordinary, or even just randomly nothing could be different. It could be every day. I just suddenly realize that, I'm dreaming. I can do whatever I want, but I always really be sure just to do a quick reality check, just to check in my hands, just to plug my nose, because like I always tell people, you don't want to jump off the roof of your house or something thinking it was a dream and then end up breaking your leg.
That's very
That's
true.
good. That's good advice. Very good advice, Burke. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to slip into the misconception that it's reality checks that will get you lucid, and so many people just do loads of reality checks throughout the day, and it's generally not that will make you lucid. It's your awareness, and then your reality checks as sort of a secondary awareness to back up that you are dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so I think we're going to start wrapping up the podcast here. Is there anything else either of you two want to mention?
Well, there was one more reality check that I wanted to mention. I forgot to list it earlier. That it's kind of a new one for me. It's really interesting. A lot of people seem to be afraid of it, though, and that's looking into a mirror. Because for some reason, reflections tend to be really weird and strange and off. And for me, I have to look into a mirror every day because I've got to put on makeup and fix my hair and put on my hat and all that for work. But I'll look at my eyes, my iris and my pupil really, really closely, and look for any changes or anything, and whatever, go on about my day. But in a dream, either if I look at my reflection, either if I'm not lucid, or even like you said, just kind of a secondary reality check after I have become lucid, if I look like deeply into my own eyes, into reflection in the mirror, like it completely, the iris is turned completely from kind of this hazel brownish green color to just this sparkly emerald green color. It happens every single time. I don't know why it's so consistent, but every time it's solid green with these little sparkles, and the pupils completely constrict to like pinpoint holes, or even sometimes no pupils at all. And once that happens, it's like I want to give myself a high five, like, woo, yeah, I'm definitely lucid, and then I go about my dream or whatever. But I think people who aren't scared of looking into a mirror should really try it, because your reflection is always different. Or I think it might have been you, Jason, who told me that the way you view yourself in your mind is how your reflection will manifest itself in a dream.
Yeah, I can't remember who I read that from, but it definitely seems accurate, because I mean, in waking life, you sort of have this picture of yourself, of what you look like. I mean, you tend to not really memorize all of your appearance. And so when in a dream, obviously when you look in the mirror, you're just putting forth that sort of idea of what you look like.
Oh, that must mean that I'm afraid of myself, because the one time I've looked in it twice, but the first time I remember actually looking in a mirror in a dream, my reflection kept darting away from me whenever I would look at it. Like, I would peer around a corner and my face would be there, and as soon as our eyes met, like, the reflection would dart away to the side.
Wow.
Like playing hide and seek with your reflection.
I don't really have anything super interesting that happens when I look in mirrors. I haven't done it a lot. I don't think I've done it once when I was lucid, which was a really interesting dream. The lucid experience, I was in my bathroom looking in the bathroom mirror, and I had my glasses on, but I couldn't actually feel the glasses on my face while I was looking in the mirror, so I thought this was slightly weird. And I do a reality check and obviously become lucid, but then just to test my glasses, I sort of put my hand onto my glasses, and as I put my hand there and take it away, a portion of the glasses just seems to disappear. Like it's sort of erased off my face, like somebody took an eraser to the mirror and erased my glasses out of existence.
Huh.
But besides that, in non-lucids, when I look in mirrors, I tend to just look similar as I do in real life, but more sort of perfect, if that makes sense. I don't know
Oh
if
yeah,
that
didn't you
means,
say? Yeah, you had like your hair is always like perfect no matter what you've been doing or whatever, right?
yeah. I don't,
Perfectionist.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I don't know if that means I'm big-headed or something.
Well, yeah, I can understand that. Every time I look in the mirror, I'm always like the most awesome babe version of myself. Minus the weird absence of pupils, but yeah, there are usually very few flaws, if any.
Alright, so was there anything else either of you two wanted to add?
Just basically as a closing remark to anybody starting out or even experienced streamers, just always keep a positive mindset and just always think that you're going to get lucid because you will. If you put the work into it, you will. And if you keep a negative mindset, then that will only hold you back.
Yeah, definitely. So, if any of the listeners want to post their experiences with milds, or even any questions, even if you have questions for Burke, I'm sure we can get him to answer them or something. And
I'll be on the forums.
yeah, so if you post your experiences and any questions you have in the podcast thread, we'll make a thread for this podcast, and we can come back to them next week and cover your questions. And I'm sure Burke can answer any directed towards him on the forums, and any experiences as well. We can talk about them briefly next week if they get posted. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for coming on, Burke. It's been interesting.
Thank you, Burke.
You're welcome. It was fun.
Yeah. Alright, so bye bye everybody. Do you want to say bye, guys?
Bye, guys.
So long.